Hello.
Hello, hello, hello. Ah,
Another week.
so here we go. So excited to be back. Week 2 of our codependency course. And man, are we jumping right in or what? Like
We're jumping right in. We're keeping these videos short and sweet because
short and sweet and to the point
that's
because we
right.
want you to get the maximum benefit out of these, and also really in this type of work, if we don't get to the core of it very soon, then you will become complacent and then it won't work.
Which is, what are we doing today?
Codependency. We
Woo!
are doing week 2. So in week 2, we're going to do imprints. Babe,
Okay.
I know this is one of your favorites. I know you use them as well with your clients, as I use them with my clients.
Yep.
Um, these actually imprints are were actually created by a man back in the Conrad Lentz was his name, and it was, I believe, like back in 1941 or 42 maybe, and he won a Nobel Prize for them. So that's how effective they are, right? You win a Nobel Peace Prize for the type of work that we're talking about that we bring into current times. So anyway, let's jump right in.
Let's do
Imprint. What is it? An imprint is a event that happened. It's very similar to a trauma. This is basically when we're talking about childhood trauma or things like that, not of the physical or sexual nature, but just as a trauma. Is where we come up with the imprints, right? So it is an event that happened that we made mean something that maybe it did or maybe it didn't. So here's the thing: we have an event that happens, and we make a judgment on ourselves about what happened in that event. So it could be anything, right? It could be got pushed down on the playground. Could be somebody said you were poor. Maybe somebody said you were ugly, and we, with our child brains, decide we're going to make what that means happen, right? So, oh, that person said I'm ugly. Maybe I actually am ugly. When in reality, you're 8 years old and you're probably not ugly. Maybe even if you are, it doesn't matter, right? Because that doesn't mean that you're ugly for life, right? Or it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It just means that some mean person said something to you, and that's what happened, right? So, in an imprint, we make a judgment. This is key. So, as we know, right, a judge is the highest form in the judicial system, correct? So that means, like, at least in the States here and also in Australia, right? When you go before a judge, that is like the end result, right? Like whatever challenge you're having with somebody else or in life or whatever, when you go before a judge, they are an expert in law and they make the decision. But we make a judgment based on this event when we are not experts in anything, basically, right? Like at 9, 8, 7, 15 even years old, we are not an expert in any field, right? We don't understand the world yet. We're still developing. So we can't make that judgment because we don't have all the information. Does that make sense? Right? So for people, right, we make these judgments and then we let it continue on later in life. So let's say you were that 8-year-old that said that somebody said you were ugly, and then let's say you met a person you wanted to be in a relationship with, and they said you were beautiful, and instead of you receiving that, it's like, oh, I knew I was beautiful, right? You're like, what do they want? That's the codependency, right? Now we're talking about the codependency. It's like we don't think about, oh, okay, well, wait, I'm ugly, so there must be something wrong with you, or whatever is wrong with me, you're doing to get something out of me, so that way I can't be in this relationship, even though nothing's happened, right? Like it's just somebody giving you a compliment that could be true,
Yeah.
because everybody's beautiful, right? To somebody else, right? Everybody has a partner of some kind in this world, so that's what we want to talk about in this particular one. So let's get to the solution because we're making quick videos here. So here was my imprint, right? So I'm going to go through the whole process with you guys, and then I'm going to switch it over to Amanda, and she's going to give part of what she works on with her clients as the solution, right? So I'm just going to give the story, and then I'm going to let her be the solution, right? So in the challenge of or in the codependency work that we do, my imprint was that I left home at 15 years old, right? I had a conversation with my father, and he said, hey, either you follow my rules or you're free to go on your own. I went back 2 days later, and I said, you know what? I'll see you later. I already have bigger and better ideas for my life than you have, and I'm not gonna stay here and be berated as a human being, right? I'm 15, right? So obviously I know everything at this point, right? And
For
and
sure.
so yeah, and so I left home, right? Grabbed my guitar and my skateboard and said, I'm gonna be famous. I'll see you later, and I left home. How other people reacted? Nobody took my side, right? A couple of my friends did, but my family, nobody contacted me. I thought my aunts or my uncles or my grandparents or somebody would reach out and say, hey, you know what? Your dad is a jerk. Come stay with us. Don't worry about it. And nobody did. And so I went on in my life and I faced a series of hardships because when you're 15 years old and you live in Hollywood, California, you face hardship. That's just how it is. Even when no matter what age you are, you live in Hollywood, California, you face hardship. But at 15 especially, because you don't have the skills or anything else to actually make it as a grown adult at that point. So there was a lot of things that happened in my life. How I responded, I felt that, hey, if my parents don't love me enough to keep me, who else is ever going to love me? Those are the first two things, right? Vows I made. I was going to be famous, bigger than life, famous, because that way I could show everybody what they missed out on by not loving me the way I needed to be loved, right? That's the codependency. So then when I looked at the event, what actually happened? Well, what happened was my dad said very simply, hey, son, here's the deal. You either follow our rules because you're starting to veer off the wrong path, or you're free to go out on your own as an ultimatum. Well, I chose the ultimatum and I said, okay, I'll see you later. I'm out of here. So he didn't kick me out. He didn't do anything. I chose that path. Now, granted, at 15 years old, given that choice probably wasn't the best on both sides. And later, he actually told me, hey, I never thought you would actually leave. That was just kind of a scare tactic. And I apologize. But the point is that I made it mean that nobody loved me. I made it mean that my family had disowned me. And every single thing that went wrong in my life from the age of 15 all the way to almost probably 38 years old, I blamed on him. Every breakup. Well, of course, I got broken up with because my dad never taught me how to be a man. Oh, every job I lost. Well, of course I lost this job because I never got the proper training. I never got to go to college. Every, fill in the blank. Everything that went wrong, I would never take responsibility. I'd be like, well, you know why? I had a crappy dad. Yeah. I can't be held responsible. I was raised by wolves. That's it, right? And so as that went on further and further, right, we know how that ended until finally I took responsibility and then came back and forgave myself, forgave my father, and all the other people involved so I can move forward and not be codependent. So when that happens, right, and you're dealing with a client, Amanda, what is one of the healing tools that you use in order for that person to feel comfortable and to express this to you and then also to heal from that?
I think the hardest part is, we go through life and then we don't actually realize what's actually going on. So that's the hardest part, is to work out,
100%.
okay, what is actually underneath all of this stuff. And when we get to that level of maturity where we want to take on responsibility, we get to see patterns and programs in our lives. And then it's a task of unraveling that. And what I like to do is something called timeline magic. So we, go through a process with a series of questions and, really dig deep and get to the bottom and get to the core. And then we do a timeline magic session where we go back in time to that event. And basically it's like painting over that event and changing it into something that you want to change and then future that out. So it's kind of going back in time to find that event, and we get to choose what we want to do with it rather than making it mean what we thought originally. So we actually have that power to go back in time and change these things. But the first thing is we got to know what that thing is. Because we can't change anything without knowing. And we only really get to that when we are ready to receive that as well, when we're ready to take responsibility and we're ready to receive the lesson from it. Or when we get to the point where we have okay, I've had 3 crappy relationships. I am done. What am I missing here? I need to change things. And then it's on that whole self-awareness and self-responsibility that we can then make changes.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. And that's why the imprints are so powerful, right? One of the most powerful tools that we use in our programs and in our lives is because we go back and think about, and the thing is it can go either good or bad, right? Like there could be other events in your life that, like you scored the winning touchdown or, or whatever sport you play, or you won an award and you made that mean, hey, I'm going to be this athlete, or I'm going to be this type of student, or I'm going to be this, whatever it is for the rest of my life, when really you just won one contest. Right? It doesn't, just because you hit one ball over the fence and a home run in baseball or something doesn't mean that you're going to be a professional baseball player and you need to forsake all other duties, right? So it can go either way. But that's the thing, is you need to go back and look at what were the significant events in your life that you remember, right? And things they mean. So anyway, there's definitely more to unveil in this, but this is our short little intro to week 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's great, in the way that you take people through like the timeline, right? Like that's the thing. Let's go back and look at it. Let's see what actually happened. And that's what we're talking about. And then let's redesign it so that we can use it as a benefit in current times, right? That's the key.
Yeah.
Because if we don't turn it around, then we stay stuck on that, and we continue to go through life in codependent relationships, and it's just like a hamster wheel, or you know what I mean? Just everything keeps continuing until you learn the lesson from it, and you can move forward with forgiveness. So the last part is obviously forgiveness, and forgiveness is always just a gift to ourselves, and that's one of the things that's so hard. Is most people think forgiveness means that they're letting the other person off the hook, and that's not true. We talk a lot more about that in some of our other videos, so we won't go deep into that. But yeah, forgiveness, it's a gift to yourself. We'll just leave it at that. Okay,
Oh,
there
wow.
we go. Week 2.
Beautiful. Thanks, Chris Stewart.
Thank you, Amanda Gable.
You're amazing.
You are amazing. And this is the thing is that when you do this work, these are the lives that you have, right? Like we are filled with abundance. We are filled with energy. We are filled with like tools and coping mechanisms to deal with anything that we go through.
Love.
And love.
And light.
Oh, yeah. Yes. I'm the clinical, she's the heart. That's how we work it. Ed, heart, and then we combine them together so we have a full circle.
Bye.
Okay.